From Visby, Sweden. We're going to take the stage together? Yes. All right, the stage is yours. Varsågod, lycka till.
Last presentation before lunch. So let me start by asking how many of you have been to Gotland? I see quite a few. That's great. Well, the Hanseatic town of Visby is located on the island of Gotland, and it's about 100 kilometers off the main coast of Sweden, in the middle of the Baltic Sea. We have a total population of about 59,000, of which 24,000 live in Visby, and of these, about 3,000 live within the walled medieval town, which is the World Heritage Site. So Gotland is one of the most popular summer destinations in Sweden, with about 2 million visitors yearly. And to date, these have been mainly domestic visitors, but increasingly we see international tourism growing. And in 2018, we had a new cruise pier established. And this has really reinforced the need for good strategies to safeguard heritage by learning from other places where over-tourism has become a problem. So I really take a lot of the advice that we've heard so far today. And for me, over-tourism is not so much about numbers of people. It's one use for a specific purpose that is pushing out other uses and purposes of the city. The Hanseatic town of Visby was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1995 as the most intact European, Northern European, I should say, walled trading town. And the 3.5 kilometer long medieval wall dates to the 13th century, and it's of high authenticity value, really. It's one of the main reasons for inscriptions. However, in addition, there are also over 200 medieval houses and plenty of Romanesque and Gothic church ruins. However, Visby was also nominated as an inhabited historic town, and the town has several distinctive layers up until present time. When it comes to maintaining a living town, how do we ensure that tourism does not threaten the vitality and quality of life of local communities? I think it's important to ask questions, as they can also guide us. How do we preserve a multifunctional living in a city all year around? Finally, how do we achieve heritage-led development and people-centered conservation? And Visby, of course, has faced similar challenges as many other towns. We've had a changing functional structure of the inner city. We've had strong privatization and gentrification processes. I think there's also a need to avoid staged authenticity and protect the city as a living habitat. And we've heard several examples raising this issue. So we've been working on a new management plan, and the process was initiated in 2017. And new goals and actions are currently being formulated based on integrated site management and stakeholder participation. And this includes everything from how do we maintain a living town to managing change through heritage-led development. So the ongoing work in Visby seeks to draw both on the goals of Agenda 2030 and also, of course, addressing the historic urban landscape approach. And of course, here for cities, goal 11 is particularly important because it deals with making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, particularly important for World Heritage cities. The UNESCO recommendation on the historic urban landscape, which we've already heard about today, refers to mass tourism as one of the key challenges facing cities in the 21st century, stressing the importance of tourism-related functions contributing to the well-being of local communities by ensuring economic and social diversity. So it offers a holistic approach to heritage values, and it deals with the question of managing change accordingly. This is just to show you the organization of this management plan process. So we have a project group with 7 theme-based working groups, and when we're dealing with sustainable tourism, we find that actually a lot of these groups are dealing with matters relating to sustainable tourism. So it's certainly complex and something where we need to work in an integrated and coordinated manner. So last week we organized a World Heritage Forum, which is really an opportunity for broad-based stakeholder participation, which of course is so important in World Heritage conservation. So, utilizing the UNESCO World Heritage Sustainable Tourism toolkit constituted an important starting point for the working group on sustainable tourism, which Monica Frisk is going to tell you more about very soon. And we found that in order to implement these guides, we really needed to do so within the realities of budgetary constraint and also to optimize resources on the ground. So we started with working closely with another World Heritage site in Sweden, Falun, which has a long experience working with these guides. And particularly important with this sustainable tourism working group was to have this mix of expertise from tourism and heritage sectors. I think this is really fundamental. And I'm going to hand over to you, Monica, and you will tell us more about the actual achievements so far.
Thank you very much. I will try to be as fast as I can. And good afternoon, everybody. Dzień dobry. I represent the local tourism association in Gotland as well as the local cruise network. And as Elene has mentioned before, we, within the framework on the holistic management plan for the World Heritage, we formed a sustainable tourism working group with expertise from tourism and heritage sectors. And the task was to look at different challenges related to increased tourism in the World Heritage site, using the UNESCO toolkit, as been mentioned before, as a source and a tool to process different aspects. And also, furthermore, to create goals to achieve a sustainable development and avoiding over-tourism in Visby and in Gotland as well. And the tasks were, as also is mentioned here, to produce a sustainable visitors policy, to safeguard cultural and natural resources, to create a code of conduct, to seek solutions for climate leadership, to create fair business relations, and to achieve local community engagement. And those things have been mentioned many times here today before, so I guess we are all on the right track here. So after quite an extensive process during the spring, with meetings, workshops, and seminars, the group finally formulated the following goals to be achieved. By producing an impact assessment, we'll be able to set a limit of maximum carrying capacity for Visby and also for vulnerable parts within the World Heritage site. By creating tools for optimal steering of visitors' flows, this will avoid additional burden on the vulnerable parts of the site and at the same time also create a better experience for the visitors. The local businesses, such as the restaurants, the shops, etc., is also given a bigger possibility to take part of an economic growth through the created trails within the destination. And of course, maps, apps, and so on will be presenting the trails to help the visitors along the way. And also this will be a way to better monitor larger groups and in order to avoid congestion within the site. To develop a code of conduct to address aspired behavior, respect and enjoy, I think it's Amsterdam that is using that expression, and I really like that, is a way to seek both awareness and engagement with the visitor as well as for the local community. We will also look at finding ways to engage the visitor, to create a call of action by, for example, giving a contribution to help save the wall. And the picture you see on the right-hand side is an event that took place on the 20th anniversary, I think, where we had a day where we would embrace the wall, so everybody was hugging the wall. And how do you help? How do you contribute as a visitor? Well, that can be done in many ways by, for example, creating competitions, using, of course, social media, supporting the community in different ways, because we know that the visitor today would really want to help. They want to be circular visitors as well. Climate leadership. Over-tourism, through cruise tourism especially, is not only a local debate, it's a national and international issue, which is constantly increasing and has to be addressed and handled. Climate leadership involves all different areas and businesses within the destination, from transportation to hotel management. And the goals here is to put together with the companies to produce and present more green experiences, for instance, to create smart and attractive solutions for transportation within the World Heritage and so on. And also, of course, to work closely with the local companies in order for them to work in a more sustainable way. And finally, to increase the work that we have been doing from the World Heritage perspectives into a broader destination plan for the whole of Gotland. So that's what we are in the beginning of doing. The implementation of that plan is actually starting as we are speaking now. And furthermore, to collaborate internationally, and especially here you can see on the slide, with Cruise Baltic Association, which is an association of 29 destinations in the Baltic Sea area, where a new sustainability manifesto was introduced and will be worked on for the future now in Copenhagen in April 2019. Thank you. Give it over to you.
Okay. Is there more?
So, if you don't mind, a bit of a surprise here now. I actually just wanted to sum up our general conclusions, and just to finish off by saying that a guiding principle to achieve sustainable tourism in urban areas is really about defending the city as a multifunctional and diverse living entity and asking questions about what defines a city. And this, of course, requires both people-centered conservation and community-based tourism. Developing sustainable tourism policy within the management plan for the Hanseatic town of Visby through the historic urban landscape approach required interaction with several other fields and working groups during the management plan process. I think equally important also was integrating World Heritage perspectives into the broader destination management on Gotland as a whole and other strategies for regional development. And finally, this is very finally, there is a significant potential in trying to use World Heritage sites as platforms for sustainable development and in addressing urban heritage issues in an increasingly complex and fragile existence of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right. I know everyone's getting hungry. I can feel the stomachs are rumbling. Mine is as well. I don't want to get in between, but we have such a great panel. I just want to ask a really few quick questions. I had to think one thing when I was thinking Visby, which I know well. I've been there many times. I would sort of ask this. If you have a cruise ship that has 5,000 people and you have a town of 10, is there any way to have 5,000 people on a cruise ship coming ashore daily or a couple times a week and have sustainable tourism with a city of 10? Is there any way that that works? Is there any way to square that circle? I would say no. Yet, in Visby and in many other cities, in little towns in the fjords in Norway, they're inviting these giant ships in to these places that are already getting overnight visitors. And I don't see how the math works, especially when these people get all the food on the ship, half the excursion money stays on the ship, they use the toilet, they buy a postcard, they buy a t-shirt, and they get back on the ship. How this math works in any way, shape, or form, I'm open to it, but I can't see it. Let me say this. We were talking about UNESCO things happening outside this buffer zone. There's this article in The Guardian from 2017. It says, it's called UNESCOcide, is getting branded by UNESCO the kiss of death for a site. And what to do about it. And what I was thinking about is when you get this designation, it's almost like we need a second designation. Like one that says you get a designation, and then the other one says, this site can fend off against the visitors better than this one can. They've already put in a carrying capacity. They already have a limit, so that even if 100 million people showed up, they couldn't all get in because they have careful limits set up. If places are protected, should they get a different designation, or even if they're green even as well, if they have a sustainable environmental policy, should they be getting a different designation? Should we have a series like platinum, gold, and a whatever, or a green and a... Is it nuanced enough, this thing that we're handing out, that you're handing out? I'm not. You're at 1,092 now, aiming for 3,000 by the, no. Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, UNESCO, we're the Secretariat. We don't hand out anything.
Okay.
It's the World Heritage Committee, it's an intergovernmental committee, it's the countries who are deciding, and the representatives. It's a convention, which means it's agreed upon by all the countries. We're not going to touch the convention. And the convention does not give any, there's no room for, it's not a certification like a LEED certification, you know, gold, silver, platinum, no. But there are, I think it's a very important question that you're asking, because the question is, what is the impact of World Heritage designation on sites? And that impact really depends on what policies and what management systems are put in place, what plans are put in place by the powers that be, whether it's at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, or the national level. It's the legislative system, it's the institutional structures, it's the resources that are put in, and it's all the thought that goes into planning, how you want to attract visitors, what kind of visitors you want to attract, what you want to show them, how you want to present it, what education and what way you're able to engage with the local people, and always keep in front of your mind the idea that the local people have to benefit from whatever it is you're doing, that it's World Heritage, as I said, it matters a lot to the rest of the world, but it matters a lot to the people who have had it for all these centuries in many cases and have nurtured it and cared for it. So if there aren't benefits coming down to the local people, then it isn't going to work. So the UNESCO side happens not because of the label, but because of how that label is being implemented in the policies and plans.
Okay. It just seems like we need something that gives some of these heritage sites some kind of power to be able to say to their city councils, hey, we could be getting this blank status, a higher, more publicized status, if we did the following things, like tour buses couldn't leave their engines idling. People had to be respectful with what they ate, respectful with the clothes they wore. We've seen a lot of people showing respect. Maybe having no rolling luggage. That bugs the locals who are waking them up early in the morning and late at night. Tour groups of 10 people or less. There's all these kind of things that could be done, but they need some kind of a motivation to get there.
We could try maybe testing out the sustainable tourism toolkit that we've developed.
Ah, good plug.
Peter De Bruin, my colleague, is here, and we could, and I'm sure in the next couple of days he will be talking more about this. And you know, we are developing these sort of tools. So as I said, the historic urban landscape recommendation, putting it in place, what are the ways that this could be done, integrating the management plan with the urban development plan, with the tourism development plan, looking at sustainable tourism tools, being able to measure some of the impacts. These are all ways, and these are you know, guides and tools that's what we're working on to develop and assist.
All right, and does it give them a new something that they can kind of hang their hat on to say, now we've used all these tools, and now we have, I guess Peter will cover that tomorrow. We'll save that for another day. One last thing, Sagrada Familia. Did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would like to ask to tell something about this tool you were talking about. Because us, as I said before, in Aranjuez are already testing that tool within this scientific committee on sustainable tourism. And I must say that at least what it brings is for you to think about what you can do and what you cannot do. And it's also about thinking what things are going on really on it's kind of reflecting on what's going on in your site. So at least it's a point to start. It is not that it brings a very nice solution to all the problems, but in fact, it makes you reflect at least of what you have to work on the future.
You know what? Let's end that right there. I think our